Health and safety laws in the workplace. The OSHA, the Federal Occupational Safety and Health Act, demands that employers provide safe and healthy working conditions for all of their employees. In addition to OSHA, there are states that have their own safety law that must be adhered to, in the workplace. Employers are obligated to comply with OSHA whilst also understanding whether they need to follow state or federal law. State or federal law. OSHA was passed in 1970 and it came into force before states had their own occupational safety and health laws. After OSHA was passed, it was up to each state to submit a plan, should they wish, to the Secretary of Labor so that it could be approved. If the plan was approved, the law of the state stood. The states that have an approved plan are known as state plan states. Every employer in that state by law has to follow the standards, regulations, and laws on health and safety in the workplace, rather than the OSHA. State plan states are Alaska, California, Arizona, Hawaii, Iowa, Indiana, Maryland, Kentucky, Michigan, Nevada, Minnesota, North Carolina, New Mexico, South Carolina, Oregon, Utah, Tennessee, Vermont, Wyoming, and Washington. Some states have their own safety laws, but they only apply to local government and state employees. These states are New York, Connecticut, and New Jersey. Private employers in these three states must follow federal law. If your employer does not operate a business in the above states, they must follow OSHA. OSHA in the workplace. Regardless of how many workers your employer has, what their position, classification, or title is, they need to follow the rules set out by OSHA. The law covers every single person who has worked for them, including rank and file employees, and family members. You should be aware that OSHA does not cover a farm operator's family members or independent contractors. Safety rules for every business. Employers are legally obliged to maintain a hazard-free workplace. This includes hazards that their employees should be aware of, and those that could cause serious injury or death. These types of hazards are known as recognized hazards. Hazards can be defined as unsafe conditions such as broken or damaged equipment, or unsafe practices such as using equipment with one hand instead of two. If your employer walks through their premises and can spot a hazard by sight or by smell, they need to eliminate it immediately, or as soon as they can. Your employer must use reasonable means to look for and eliminate every hazard they spot, no matter how small or inconsequential the hazards may seem. Sending employees to work elsewhere. In addition to making sure their employees are safe in the work area that they have provided for you, they must make sure every worker is safe even when they're working off the premises. Employers are also required to provide their employees with equipment and tools that are safe to use. Every employee will need to be adequately trained to use any tools and equipment safely. Employers must supervise employees to make sure they are using tools and equipment in a safe manner. OSHA also states that employers must provide safety equipment, such as eye and ear protection, where and when necessary. Rules for particular industries. Although OSHA's safety standards apply to every business, some of them only apply to the agriculture, construction, longshoring, and maritime industries. www.osha.gov has a lot of information on its website about safety standards. Additional requirements. In addition to keeping the work environment safe and hazard-free, employers will need to meet specific reporting, posting, and record-keeping requirements. These need to be submitted to the Federal Occupational Safety and Health Act for inspection. If, for example, a fatal accident has occurred on the premises, the accident must be reported within 8 hours. Employers are also obliged to hang up an OSHA poster that informs their team of their obligations and rights under the law. They are also obliged to keep records as evidence of their efforts to comply with laws and to prevent illness and injuries. OSHA and workers' rights. Workers have the right to take action to ensure they work in a safe environment. This means that they can approach OSHA and file a complaint about unsafe working conditions, or any other violations. By law, employers cannot retaliate against one of their workers for this. Workers can also refuse to work if they think they are in danger. By law, employers cannot retaliate against workers for this. If they are found guilty of suppressing a worker's OSHA rights, employers could face substantial fines and penalties.